Welcome back. You're still watching the weekend edition of the Morning Express and haven't spoken to the nurses and finding out why they're on strike. We'd hope that they'll call off the strike anytime soon. Let's shift our focus to talking about Nigeria's refineries. Recently, we were told that the refineries will be up for sale with the exemption of the Port Harcourt refinery. Why was the Port Harcourt refinery excluded from the other refineries that will be on sale? This conversation is what we will have now, as I have joining us from Lagos virtually, senior energy consultant and oil and gas expert, Dr. Wisdom Enang. Good morning to you, Doctor, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Ike. Thank you very much for having me.
Doctor, you are an energy expert. I'd like to ask you, we are selling our refineries eventually, with the exemption of the Port Harcourt refinery. Should we be selling off the refineries in the first place?
The decision to, sell or keep the refinery is purely an economic decision, and one that may have taken into cognizance the status of the refinery, as well as one that would have taken into cognizance the money that has been put into those refineries. So my thoughts, without any insight information, would have been that the Port Harcourt refinery, about $18 billion has been put in already. And so the NNPCL still feels that they have come a long way and would like to complete that. The model they would like to complete that is entirely up to them. It could be either of several models. It could be a model where they complete it with the government funds and then run and operate it. A model where they bring in a stakeholder to take some equity stake and then complete it, and then they choose whoever will be the operator, or they can operate it themselves. Or a model where they complete it themselves but choose not to operate it with their own funds, and they get a third-party expert, consultant to come in and run that facility, or company to run it for them. But to your question, the value that is going to be gotten from selling them at this point, in reference to their studies and the assessment they've done, kind of outweighs the value that you get. Let's just focus on the Port Harcourt refinery that we put in about 18 billion already into.
Now, I would like to ask Dr. Wisdom, we've spent so much money, trying to fix these refineries. Over the years, we've had terminologies like TAM, the turnaround maintenance, which is geared towards keeping the refineries working. At some point, the refineries were working and they stopped working. It was excitement for us when this administration came on and got the refineries working. Nigerians were upbeat, and we were told, activities had resumed in earnest in these refineries. At some point, we didn't even know if it was a refinery or a blending plant. Now we're selling off these refineries. How will Nigerians take this news? Does it not impact on the reputation of government in any way?
Well, so Ike, this is what I would say. Privatization is not a bad thing, provided it yields value. That's what I would say. I mean, we have seen in the UK, for example, under Margaret Thatcher and other prime ministers that came thereafter, where there were successive governments that pushed to privatize a lot of the government-owned ventures, so that it could go into hands of the people that had time and the resources to run that particular venture. But the issue here is even the Port Harcourt refinery, what are the plans around them, and even around that facility, and even the the other refineries, the Warri and the Kaduna ones that they want to sell. How do we intend to extract maximum value? Because it's one thing to say you want to sell something. It's another thing to say, how much are we going to sell it? Is that even worth anything to Nigeria? And more importantly, so that we can still solve the energy problem of making sure that we can provide energy affordably and accessibly, that yes, we will sell it, but we would make sure that whoever buys it doesn't keep it as a collateral, but they can then get some utility value from that facility. That's a really important bit. And then, of course, how do we ensure that we don't sell it at an underpriced value to maybe political cronies and all of that, which is what we've gotten from lessons learned in previous privatizations. So those are the key issues. But in terms of privatization is not a bad thing. It doesn't weigh down on the government. But what weighs down on the government is taking counterproductive decisions. Keeping a refinery you can't run, or selling a refinery that clearly could have made value for the government. Those are counterproductive decisions that undermine the government's reputation.
Dr. Wisdom, I had asked you to clearly tell us which is which. You're saying privatization. You're saying sale. Help us understand.
All right, thank you. Well, privatization in this context is the same thing as taking it from the government hand and then giving it to a different individual, who would run it as a private entity without any oversight from government or any interference of government. That's what I mean by this term. I know you're asking because there's also privatization where you're thinking, well, the NNPCL is privatized, so is that not privatization? So I get it, but this is just giving to a separate person with some sort of dichotomy away from the government influence, and let them just take a different approach. Let's see if their approach is going to yield any different results.
Okay, but for the benefit of the viewer, from a layman's perspective, clarity. When we say clarity, because my little understanding of selling of something means you're no longer the owner. You've sold it off, so you cannot lay claim to that particular commodity or thing that you've sold off. So are we outrightly going to sell off these refineries, these other ones, and we are no longer the owners, only the Port Harcourt refinery?
Okay, no, that fine print has not yet been agreed upon, and the reason I'm saying so is, I can equally say, look, I'm selling a stake in the refinery. I'm selling, say, 80%. I'll retain 20% stake. So it's too early. The word sell is an umbrella word that governs all possibilities. But it is too early to say, is it going to be 100% of the stake sold or some percentage? That would define whether we own some or we relinquish all our equity or ownership in the as a country in those other refineries that are on for sale.
Okay. Now, we've spent a lot of money, on these refineries, and now we're talking about it is sale or privatization. What, to you, I'm trying to get the right way to put this question now. Will that address the issue that Nigerians will be looking forward to, perhaps knowing with regards to refineries? Because if we're not selling the refineries, or we're selling the other ones, and the only one we're keeping is Port Harcourt refinery, and Dangote on one side, as a country, shouldn't we own these refineries? Shouldn't we at least have, minimum of 3 to 4? Because if we're either selling or privatizing, it means we only have Port Harcourt refinery and Dangote, which is privately owned.
Well, I think the biggest thing that is going to answer the question for Nigerians is not who owns the refinery, it's whether those refineries are functional. Now let's take a different cue into a playbook that I think I'm going to propose. Now let's look at, assuming we are about to sell those refineries, and we're laying out terms, and this is on the basis that we put out 100% stake in the ownership of the refineries, and we say, look, we want to sell this refinery, and we want competent people who have either by themselves run a refinery of this magnitude, and they have a partner that has an international partner with a high reputation, perhaps listed on a stock exchange of any kind that has the reputation to run this kind of refineries. And we need this kind of capital base to be shown that you can actually fix the refineries. And then we need your plan on how you're going to, turn around that refinery and make it operational. And then also we need your plan on how you're going to solve the issues, whether it be crude supply issues facing the refinery. What does that mean? By the time you put those strict criteria in place, yes, you may need to, take a bit of a sacrifice on the value of the refinery, because you are putting stringent conditions to optimize the utility value. You might need to take some sacrifice on the cost value that you're proposing for the sale, or the sale value. Yeah. So when you do all of that, that then fits into the framework that people then use as the basis to come forward for bidding. If that goes through, there is an 80% chance, right, that those people that are getting it are going to be competent. They'll be able to turn their facility around within the time frame that is logically possible to do so, and then we will still have production and supply from those refineries. I think that's a win-win for us. Nigerians are not really bothered. I mean, when last did you check any of the telco networks, if government has a stake or not? Or when last did you check any of that? It's immaterial, because once you get value, what matters to you is the value that you're getting at this material point in time. So that's the way I kind of think they should structure it, so that we are going to get something out of a situation that looks like we're losing. I'm just trying to get us to catch as a straw, a drowning man, get out a straw and try and make the most out of the opportunity.
Okay. Well, as much as this may not exactly come out well, many Nigerians have, suspected Dangote his intention, to expand in business frontiers, and with his refinery at the moment being the only functional refinery, you suspect some hanky-panky in all that is happening that may give Dangote the advantage?
No, I don't suspect that, but here's the thing. I would say, the situation, yes, the market dynamics itself may, invariably create an advantageous position for the Dangote refinery, but that is not something that, is being masterminded for his favor. No, I don't believe so. I just believe that, there's an ample opportunity in that market, and that should even, that is something that I think I'm right, because if you look at the recent playbook, what we'll call the Dangote 3.0 playbook, is that he has decided to let go the oversight and governance structure for the Dangote cement, and then focus more on the refineries expansion, and has equally said that very soon the Dangote refinery will be, I think, listed on the stock exchange and then open for Nigerians to go ahead and get ownership. So that's telling you the next scale of play that the Dangote is going to be playing in. But again, Ike, this market, we can't really, with the benefit of hindsight, lament too much about the advantage that the market dynamics has created, because this market was, there, the ample opportunity was there. Yes, there was no fuel subsidy removal, which would have encouraged anyone to come in. But Dangote waited, and then when the time came that fuel subsidy was going to come out, he started producing, and then that came up in his favor. So it's a risk-reward thing. He took the risk. He started building the refinery when there was still subsidy in place, and which was why the refinery was built for export. A lot of the facilities, money was put into export facilities. That, okay, if we continue the subsidizing fuel, you will have to face the export market. But luckily, just at the nick of time when operations was to start, the fuel subsidy removal was done. So it's a risk, and so much risk with so much reward. I think that's what I understand that is playing out.
Okay. This question will still be about the sale of the refineries. Why keep the Port Harcourt refinery when we cannot ascertain its functionality is there perhaps a plan to change its status, expand it, make it bigger? Because at some point when it functioned, we heard it was blending from refining. Or why not sell off everything or privatize everything? Let's know that we're done spending, especially with this whole TAM thing we've been hearing over the years.
Okay, I think for me, right, yes, that's the most convenient thing to do the sale of all the refineries. But let's look at it from a different standpoint. The Port Harcourt refinery, in fairness to the consideration, 18 billion has already been put in. So let's put it this way. If you were to want to sell a car and then you change, a significant part of the car, but the car is still not moving, it's still not functional, perhaps the engine is left, the way that car will be priced will be undervalued as long as it's not operational and as long as it is not operational in a profitable way. So it's difficult to even value or put a valuation around a lot of effort that have gone into the upgrade. Then you have not crossed the boundary of reliable operations and the hurdle of profitability. So that may have been a challenge they faced. We put 18 billion. How much can someone really want to buy? I remember the evaluation would have actually maybe taken some non-binding requests for auction, and then people will say this is how much we want to buy, and then they look at it that if someone is going to buy it at that price, is that worth us even attempting? Or they could even get the refinery evaluators to go in there and say, okay, what would people want to buy it for from experience? And that would have informed that, okay, it is better not to sell this at this particular point in time, get it operational, cross into making it profitable and demonstrating that it is profitable before we can then position it for sale. That's just me saying. I'm not saying that I know for certain that would go on for sale, but I think that would have been the model. As I said, it's simple. If you fixed your car, you only have a little more to fix and get it functional and then show that it is reliable. Then you can command, let's say, ×2 of the value. That would be a sensible thing to do. On the other side of the argument, and this is just my point, keeping that Port Harcourt refinery may also be strategic. Why is it strategic? It allows the government to actually have some notional idea from an experiential basis of what the cost of refining is. So it's not going to be that tomorrow any single refinery will come and tell us that refining will cost 10,000, for example, and they can't open their books to you because it's a private entity and you have nothing to double check with. That's the position that perhaps may have fed into this. That look, if we lose this point, we lose the very opportunity to be able to say, look, we are refining in this same country. We know the price point. Please don't let your price point go beyond this. Otherwise, it'll be extortion. And so for me, I think yes, you can't price fix in the markets. That's clear. But it will form a better argument to be able to look at, okay, is this price reasonable or not? Or should we look at measures to be able to, moderate that pricing if it's not reasonable? Not that you can fix the price, but at least you can midwife measures to moderate the pricing based on the price point that you've seen from the refining of your own refinery. That's kind of my thought of what would validate the reasons for keeping the Port Harcourt refinery.
All right, Doc. Before we go, usually we cannot have this conversation without me asking you what's the glimmer of hope. It's clear that we're not selling these refineries, contrary to speculations. We're keeping Port Harcourt refinery. What should Nigerians look forward to in the coming days that perhaps will give us something to hold on to?
I think in the coming days, we would see NNPCL come out with a more informed position on what the real time it would take for us to get that Port Harcourt refinery functional, cognizant of the systemic issues that are there, especially with linking some of those obsolete equipment with newer ones and all of those upgrades. I think it will be very clear so that we can have a pathway to getting that refinery functional. Because remember, I think the whole, for me, the whole very unfortunate situation around this whole refinery coming up and going down is that marketers and some people downstream of that business have built an entire model to serve that business and now build their livelihoods around that. So those fluctuations are not helping the livelihoods. They're not also helping to ensure regional stability in supply and pricing for for people around the South region. So I think we're going to see a clearer picture of what it would take to turn around that facility, and God being with us, that would come through as planned.
Will this be the end of TAM, which many have called a scam?
Hopefully, it will be the end of TAM, but also I think this deep dive is going to allow us to learn from what we call lessons learned review, be able to learn from previous experiences, which of course TAM is one of them. We'll also be able to find out what is making us not operate as profitably and efficiently as we want to. And, it may even go back to the point you made, which is perhaps consider the expansion of that refinery to make it a bit more, efficient, and also to make it to encompass the economies of scale as we would have in most refineries. So I think there's a glimmer of hope that this study is going to give us a path forward and a very a clear path forward towards fixing it. Whether or not we take that path, it is only the future that can tell.
Dr. Wisdom Enang, Senior Energy Consultant and Oil and Gas Expert, thank you for your time. We will keep tabs as developments unfold in the coming days. Where there's need for us to have this conversation again, we'll get across to you, perhaps for a better explanation, so Nigerians don't misunderstand the actions of government. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ike. God bless you.
Well, this is where we'll draw the curtain for the weekend edition of the Morning Express for this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. We've talked about the refineries. We've talked about the nursing, the strike of nurses and health workers. Hopefully that will be called off anytime soon, perhaps this weekend. And we've talked about sports. You've listened to Omoyerek tell us, bring us up to speed with what's happening in the world of sports. This is why I say thank you so much for being a part of the program from the morning until this time. My name is E.K. Chiku Jewel. Do well to follow us across our social media platforms. You see that scrolling on your screen. We'll make a return again next weekend. Take care of yourself. Happy New Month and a happy birthday to me in advance. Bye for now.